this is all covered in the economic textbooks, right? Well, this brings us to the last point on energy primacy. Economic productivity is dependent on capital and labor and, most importantly, energy. And this is not accounted for in our economics textbooks. Around 200 years ago, again, we started to use the stored energy in the bonds of coal, oil, and natural gas. Effectively, human economies got armies of workers from the ground, and we didn't have to pay for their creation, only their liberation. But before the arrival of these fossil fuels, economic theory was more in line with reality. Only after the introduction of these millions of years of past solar biomass production, the limiting aspect of renewable resources became temporarily irrelevant. And in fact, all relevant economic theorists back in the day, including Adam Smith, David Ricardo, and others, used land and land productivity as key parameters. And we didn't have fossil fuels then, but those were non-renewable, limited natural resources that were incorporated in economic theory. Then during a transitional phase of economics in the 20th century, labor and capital were additionally introduced. And somehow in the late 20th century, macroeconomic systems got reduced only to labor and capital, leading to today's predominant views in our institutions. So given everything we've just gone through, how might the standard economic theory circular economy model be altered? Well, production is a function of capital and labor and energy, with energy being the most important input. Currently, most externalities are not included in prices. So if we had to account for all the deleterious environmental impacts of CO2 and other things, our energy prices would be much more expensive, and therefore economies would have smaller benefits. Specifically, the source is providing us energy from Earth's geologic battery for free under current models, and the sink is taking away from our site, and only temporarily, the pollution, also at no cost under current models. So if we view economics as a physical science, we don't pay for the creation of, nor the pollution from, the most valuable input to our economies. We only pay for the cost of extraction. Okay, you might be validly asking, why haven't I heard of any of this energy stuff before? There was an economics movement in the 70s that looking towards what's called an energy theory of value, which is kind of what I'm outlined in this section. But it was debunked and cast aside because it coincided with this period where technology had major advances relative to energy. Not only did we have a lot of energy, but because of the energy crisis, we made our power plants more efficient. We started using natural gas, fuel switching, and lots of ways that it made it seem that we not only had plenty of energy, but our technology was getting astronomically better. So this idea that energy underpins our economies started to exist, and then it was squashed 40 or 50 years ago. And going back to this graphic, for most of the last 50 or 60 years, we always did have plenty of low-cost energy. So the money versus resource situation, it looked like we were following the same curve. But now most people that are paying attention recognize that something's wrong. We've kind of decoupled the black money curve from the non-renewable energy and resource curve. Yet this isn't really formally discussed. The relationship between money, between energy, non-renewable resources, and between sustainable flows is something that's going to be central to your lives, even your lives as 20 to 30-year-olds, because we're probably going to have to come up with some new economic stories and arrangements to fit with reality. Okay, this was a bit of a sledgehammer. The main point is that energy is very important to our societies, and economic productivity in our economies is dependent not only on capital and labor, like the economics textbooks say, but on energy, and not only energy, but cheap energy, which is going to be the subject of the next video.